All Age Arts. I'm Mrs. Anderson. Kids call me Mrs. A. So today I thought that we would talk about invertebrates. Now invertebrates, they cover 95% of all animals on this earth. So we're going to narrow it down and do underwater invertebrates. This is a watercolor resist artwork. So you're going to need to grab your watercolors and oil pastels, or perhaps you have watercolors and crayons. And if you don't have watercolors, don't worry, you can always color in the water with either markers or crayons or whatever tools you decide to use today. All right, let's get into materials. So the materials we'll need: choose your paper, paper size, paper color. You'll need some type of permanent marker if you are going to use the watercolors, so you'll want a permanent marker. I am going to use oil pastels, and I'll do a sample with crayons as well. For my brushes, I have a flat brush or a round brush. Any type of brush will work. You'll need a little cup of water, your watercolors, and some type of napkin, paper towel, or tissue to help blot off any watercolor that might stay on top of your waxy crayons or your oil pastels. Go grab your materials. All right, we are talking about invertebrates. Those are animals without a backbone. And I found out that over 95% of the 1.4 million known animal species are invertebrates. So I decided to narrow it down and talk about the underwater invertebrates. In fact, invertebrates that live in the ocean or seawater, saltwater invertebrates. I have a couple of different sizes and colors of paper that I'm going to work with today. I think I'll start out with this white paper here. Sea stars. They come in so many different sizes, shapes, and colors. I thought that was pretty interesting. I might cover this up, so take a look at it if you want to use one of these for your artwork. I like to start with a border. You might have noticed that with some of my other videos. It's just a way that we can create a nice frame around our picture. I like to mount my artwork at the end. To put it on another piece of paper is to mount. But if you don't have another piece of paper to mount your artwork on, well, now you have a built-in frame. And it just really makes the end artwork look really nice and clean. All right, for this one, I want to dive into the invertebrate, the octopus. This just amazes me, the octopus, but I don't really want to draw the whole thing. So I'm gonna look at maybe drawing half the octopus, or maybe I could just draw a couple of tentacles coming into play. I would like to start with that before I draw any sand or anything else. I want to draw that octopus. I kind of want it to be the star of my show. So I'm going to go maybe half of the head, maybe that bit of the eye, then maybe a tentacle coming out. I like the way that it kind of curls around. I'm going to go back around that line, and then I'm going to make it go thicker as it heads to the head. And I'm gonna go ahead and go for another tentacle coming out. Maybe this one is playfully over here. I'm gonna go back close to my line, and then I'm gonna make it a little bit thicker as it gets closer here. Maybe one more tentacle coming down. Maybe it goes off my paper, back on my paper, off my paper, back up and behind this one. Whoa, I just did some overlapping. By skipping this tentacle here, it looks like it's overlapping this one. Like this one is behind. I kind of like doing some overlapping in my artwork to add some contrast and some space. So now I have some space going on. This one is in the foreground and this one is just behind it. It looks like they have these like little round parts I might add. When I was younger, I used to think that these were like suction cups for the octopus. And maybe I'll draw a whole circle here, or it's more of an oval actually. Oval, circle, maybe half of it. There we go, and this little one too. Skipping Make sure it stays behind. And there we go. For that eye, I think I'll go back in and kind of create that eye space. All right, the octopus, it is now on my paper. Now I want to add some more invertebrate friends. I found out that coral is a type of invertebrate. Sea sponge is a type of invertebrate. I like the jellyfish, one of the oldest invertebrates, over 600 million years ago, the jellyfish. I think I would like to create maybe a starfish coming into play. 1, 2, 3. It's going to go behind my octopus. 4 and 5 for that starfish. Now, maybe I could put the little spines of my starfish just by touching the top of my Sharpie here or whatever tool that you have, maybe a pen or a pencil. And maybe I'll do kind of like a little spiral in the middle. There we go. I have 2 invertebrates so far. I think I'd like to add maybe a sand bottom to my ocean here. I'm gonna go here, maybe down, skipping my starfish, and maybe a sea sponge, maybe some coral. I kind of like this coral that has an elliptical. It's kind of like a circle, but you view it from the side. So I'm trying to draw this one, and I'm just drawing a bunch of ovals. Now I'm going to connect the ovals with lines going down. Maybe I'll add another little one over here. I like that. I could add maybe some seaweed or some type of plant life. Maybe some bubbles that I could color in. Maybe I'll just add some like little random bubbles coming up. So far, I've really made sure that I have some artwork from the top to the bottom of my page, really filling up my space. I feel like maybe right here there's an empty space. I could add a fish, but a fish is not an invertebrate. A fish has bones. So maybe I'll just add some more bubbles to kind of fill in that space. I like it. I might have been going kind of quick. I can also slow it down. I think I'm going to put this to the side before I start drawing or start coloring it with my crayons, or maybe I'll use oil pastels for that. I haven't decided quite yet. I like this smaller piece. Again, I'm going to go ahead and start with my border. Maybe I'll do a wavy line for my border. Straight on the sides and maybe wavy down below. Just a different way to create that border. And this one too. I like that wavy line one. I'm going to do a wavy line. Kind of makes me think of the water always flowing and moving. Although, yes, there could be still water. All right. For this one, maybe I'll do a vertical composition. I like that a lot of invertebrates will move from shell to shell for protection. So maybe I'll start out with some type of invertebrate coming out of a shell. I like doing a spiral for my shell. I start out with a spiral and a line down. I'm going to have something peeking out here. I kind of like this guy with his claws. 2 eyes coming out. Whoop. I could leave it like a sea snail. But I think I do want to add something coming down here. Maybe a little claw. Ha! I like it. This one, I kind of want to show something different for the sand. I'm just going to make these little marks on the bottom, just little dots. And maybe that'll be my sand area. In my other artwork, I used line to create my sand area. But I think I just want to do little dots for this one. So I found out that the largest invertebrate is the colossal squid. Wow, and that it still exists today. It's interesting to think that invertebrates are older than the dinosaurs, and they still exist today. So it's kind of like something older than the dinosaurs is still walking about the earth today. All right, the sea sponge really has some jagged areas, very organic shape. Organic shape is when I can't even put a name to it. Geometric shape, well, we're learning the names of geometric shapes. Geometric shapes are like circle, oval, star. But organic shape, I don't have a name for organic shape. So when I don't have a name for a shape, I call it organic shape. There we go. I just made some lines. When I color it in, it'll stand apart from my sea snail a little bit better. So far I have 2 invertebrates. I think I want to add one more. The jellyfish. Oh, the jellyfish is really fun to draw. Sometimes I like to start with what I would say is kind of like an umbrella, and then I can add the tentacles. And that's just kind of some little wavy lines coming down, some curled lines. Sometimes I'll go back and do a line right next to it to kind of create a thicker shape. All right, I have 1, 2, 3 invertebrates in this artwork, but I still have some empty space over here. How I ended up with the empty space here, I kind of filled it up with bubbles. So I'm gonna try and think of something else I could do. I have an idea. What if this jellyfish is close to the viewer, but this one is farther away? Because it's farther away, I'll make it smaller. Gives the illusion like it's either farther away, or maybe you're like, Mrs. A, that looks like a mama and a baby. Could be. It's up to you. I always like that what you see might be different than what I see. All right, for this one, I think I want to make a sea star, the star of the show. I kind of like this thicker one here. I'm gonna go with a triangle to start. Maybe another triangle. Another triangle. These are not perfect triangles, you may have noticed. Maybe some of my triangles are kind of curving to the side, but I was calling them triangles anyways because it's just kind of the general shape. And now I think I want to add some little circles going around, little dots going around in a circle, and maybe some spines coming from that circle. There we go. All right, so I have 3 artworks that I've started. Now it's time to get into the colorful part of our artwork. You can choose crayons, oil pastels, or if you're not using any type of watercolor today, then you can color these in with markers or whatever you have. Here we go. I think I'll start out with this one here. I'm going to color this one in with oil pastels. And so with my oil pastels, I have kind of a bigger box of colors to choose from. And I know that I'm going to paint my water blue. And so my water is a cool color and I don't want to lose my animals. So I'm going to choose like a warm color, warm colors for my invertebrates. And that way they'll really stand out when I start adding the blue paint on top of it. I always like to use 2 colors when I'm coloring in an animal or a plant. Pretty much anything that I color in, I like to use more than 1 color. So I'm going to start out with this warm orange. Maybe I'll just color in part of it here. I like going on the top of this tentacle. Oh, my oil pastel broke, and that's okay. I will use this small piece. And I'm going to go like this. Sometimes oil pastels will break when I apply heavy pressure because they're made with oil. Crayons, not so much. They're a little bit more durable because they're made with wax. Either oil pastels or waxy crayons will work for our watercolor resist today. That's because oil and water don't mix. That's because wax and water don't mix. So we're going to create a resist. The wax or the oil will resist our watercolor paint. All right, I think I have enough orange, so now I want to add my second color. Hey, why did this octopus turn orange in the first place? Did you know that the octopus can change colors and hide within its habitat? Maybe I'll add some orange on here. Maybe that's what inspired the octopus to turn a little orange. There we go. Will camouflage itself. Not only to hide maybe from predators, but maybe because the octopus is a predator and it wants to hide so it can hunt. I'll go with this lighter peachy color here. Kind of like a transition from my orange, still a warm color. And just coloring away that white paper. Coloring away my white paper. Now, if you want something to stay white, you will need to use the white crayon or your white oil pastel. And that's because when we add the blue water, anywhere we don't add a color on our paper, we're going to change the color of our paper with our watercolor. So we want to make sure we color away all the white paper with what we want to have show up. So if I want white to show up, I can't just leave the white of the paper. I will have to use a white crayon or white oil pastel. And we'll get into that in a little bit. All right, so I've started coloring this one. And I'm going to use a different color for my sea anemone over here. I think I called it a sponge earlier. I do have a sponge in my other artwork that I'll get to. Oh, I just love the colors that you can see in these underwater animals. I think that ocean animals or saltwater fish and saltwater sponge and sea anemones are just so colorful. And so it's nice to bring a warm color into those dark depths of the cool waters of the ocean. All right, there we go. I have my octopus mainly colored in, but I don't want to forget the white. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and hit those bubbles. All the bubbles that I created, I want them to stay white, so I'm going to use the white oil pastel on top of those. I just don't want to forget those. All right, now I'm going to go back to my octopus here. I'm going to color those in white. You might say, Mrs. A, that's silly. I cannot tell that you're using white on white paper. It's true. It almost makes it magical when we add the watercolor. And you'll see that towards the end because that's the last part of our art project. First part, hardest part is where to start. And we already got that done with our first line, creating whatever animal that you created. Next part was to color it in, and that's what we're doing now. Maybe I'll add some yellow to this sea anemone and my starfish. I still want my starfish to be a warm color. Purple can be either warm or cool, just depending on how much red is added or how much blue is added when you create the secondary color of purple. So maybe I'll add purple and add some red. There we go. Now, I only have red in one area of my paper, and that might become a focal point. So I might go back and maybe add some red in some other areas. Hey, maybe I'll add some spots to my octopus. That's a nice little detail to add. There we go. All right, for that sand area, here we go. I like to use light pressure for my sand, and that's creating a translucent look. That means I can see the white paper underneath where I'm coloring in. And let me just show you really quick something to kind of better describe that. Transparent, light pressure will give you transparent or see-through and a rough texture. Opaque, that's when we apply heavy pressure and we get a solid color. Sometimes it also changes the texture to smooth. I made sure I applied heavier pressure when I was coloring in my animals. And now for my sand, I'm kind of doing a light pressure so that you can still see the white paper through the sand because I'm going to add my water on top. And the water is on top and inside of these sandy areas. So I'm okay with the blue watercolor getting into my sand area. So here we go, just kind of lightly going around, filling in these spaces. It's okay if I leave a little white paper in my sandy area. I don't mind. But I do want to add something else on the bottom of the ocean here, maybe like a little rock. I don't know, maybe these could be little animals. Maybe they're baby crabs. Again, what you see is different than what I see, and we're both right. That's something I love about art. Oh, I don't want to forget inside of my sea anemone that I'm going to apply heavier pressure to make it opaque. There we go. This artwork is now ready for the watercolor. I'm excited about that. I'm going to put it aside and I'm going to go into my little one here. This one I did want to use a warm color as well. I think I'll do pinks and reds for this one. This was already on like a purplish paper, so my pink might not come out as bright. I could always add a little bit of white to it. That's like adding a tint to already, a tint of red is pink, so I'm just kind of lightening up that pink just a little bit more, and now I'm going to go into it with a darker red. I'm going to overlap onto the white and the pink area there. There we go. And this is definitely closed composition. My whole starfish fits inside of that frame that I created, that border. Ooh, maybe I could do something special with my border. I always tell artists that finish early, you can always go back and work on your border. Maybe create a pattern or something that goes around. Maybe I'll do that. I'm just going to go around my border with the red as well. The sea star is the star of my show. There we go. Creating a nice little border there. All right, and last but not least, I have this one where I had the vertical composition. I think I'll start kind of at the top and work my way down so I don't get my hand too dirty. So for my animal here, I think I'm going to go in with a white first to color in my jellyfish, and then I can go on top of the white with any color that I want. And it's just really going to help this jellyfish glow. Glowing jellyfish. There we go. And this one too, some of those tentacles coming down. I think I'm going to go back on top. This time I'm going to add a little cool color. I haven't really added very many cool colors. Even the purple I used was kind of a warm purple. So maybe I will add a couple of cool colors just so that way you can also see and make a decision. Because I am going to use a cool color for my paint. The shell. Again, I like to use two colors when I'm coloring in any animal or plant. So I'm starting out kind of with this first color here, and I'm going to go back on top of it, maybe with a little bit darker of a pink. There we go. Maybe I'll add some stripes. And maybe for the body, I'll go back with that warm purple. There we go. Oh, those two little eyes sticking out. I don't want to forget those. I need to color them in if I want them to stay. And for the sand, I'm going to go with like a brighter yellow sand. Going right over those dots. I really like that I added dots for the sand on this one. It just gave it a texture that I was kind of missing with my other ones. I want to make sure I get right into that negative space, the space in between, coloring my yellow. It's kind of hard for me to see the yellow because I'm working on a yellow paper. But when I add the watercolor, it will become clear where my yellow is. There we go, coloring that in. Again, the largest invertebrate is the colossal squid, and it grows up to 46 feet long. Oh my goodness. How could I draw something that's 46 feet long in a small picture? Really small. Let me get a little black eyeball in there. All right, and I still have my sea sponge. Now this one's yellow, but I already colored the ground yellow. So I'm gonna change the color of my sea sponge, kind of like this yellow-orange. So by adding a little bit of orange to my yellow, it's gonna come out a little bit different than just the yellow sand there. But I do like this. Maybe I'll add a little bit of this color in my sand. Oh, I love art. It's always changing. Can never go wrong with art. There we go. Now, it accidentally took the black that I put in that eye and it smeared it a little bit. There we go. All the way up and around. Yep, took that black. I don't mind. It just becomes part of my artwork. Maybe a little orange. A little darker of an orange on the bottom. There we go. Right in the middle there. All right, I'm just about ready for my watercolor. Now, if you were creating with me today and you did not have oil pastels, maybe you had crayons, you can create this artwork with crayons as well. I might do one more sample just to show you how it looks with the crayons. So I did a quick sample using the crayons. I was so excited when I was doing this artwork with you. I was doing all of my samples with the oil pastels. So I'm going back and I'm using the crayons to color in this artwork, because I want to get to the watercolor and show you how both of these materials will work for the resist. And again, the resist is because water and oil don't mix. Also, water and wax don't mix. And these are waxy crayons. So I'm just gonna color in a little bit more here, and then we're gonna get to that magic of using the watercolors to add our water. And again, just a reminder, because I knew that I was going to use the blue and maybe the purple for the deeper waters of my artwork, I decided to use warm colors to color in my invertebrates. And a reminder, invertebrates are animals without a backbone. Animals without a backbone. A classic example of an animal without a backbone would be like a butterfly. And the butterfly is a type of invertebrate that undergoes something called metamorphosis. It starts out as a juvenile, it is a caterpillar, right? It's still an invertebrate. It's an animal without a backbone. And this caterpillar goes into metamorphosis and then becomes its adult self, which is the butterfly, which again is an invertebrate, an animal without a backbone. And so just remember, there's so many invertebrates. It is the largest amount of animals that we have on this planet. They are invertebrates. 95% of the animals on this planet are invertebrates. Now, if you did add a fish or a shark or a dolphin, those are not invertebrates, but that is perfectly fine. You can add whatever you would like. This is your artwork. I just wanted to remind you, though, that invertebrates are animals without a backbone. So I'm doing something silly here. I'm using my white crayon. You don't see these bubbles I'm adding, but you will very soon. You will very soon. I'm just gonna get to my sand area, and then it's time to add our water. Oh, I wanna get a nice warm brown in here. All right, it's time to add the watercolor. So I have some art that was done with oil pastel, and I have one here that was done with crayon. This area in my watercolor tray, I call a palette. And sometimes I can bring the color up into this area and mix it into the darkness or the lightness that I would like. I'm going to add water to ignite my watercolor, and I'm bringing it up into this area. I'm going to dip into the purple a little bit to create a darker blue, a nice purple blue here. Ooh, I like that. And then maybe I'll create an area that's just the blue with maybe some green. I don't know, it's so much fun adding these colors and mixing new colors. Maybe you'll be the inventor of a new color. All right, I'm gonna use this blue and I'll go over this one first. I'm gonna go from the top to the bottom. Now I have a wavy border that I wanna stay inside, and I'm gonna go right over my artwork. I'm not gonna try and skip it. I'm gonna go right over it. It's always nice to have some type of napkin or a Kleenex or a tissue, something to blot the watercolor off of the oil pastel or the crayon. Or some artists like that the watercolor kind of beads up and sits on top of it. So it's kind of up to you. You can do it both ways. And if it dries and you don't like it, you can always go back over it. I'm trying to make my direction of the water go one way, and I decided for this one to go from top to bottom. So I'm keeping up with that brush stroke, going from top to bottom, top to bottom. Now, I started out with this kind of like a sandy color of paper or beige, and it's changing the blue a little bit, maybe like a blue-green. I kind of like that the beads of water are staying on top of my animals, but I want to create something a little darker. So I'm just going to dip right into the watercolor, and I'm going to go from the sand up, right over my animals, from the sand up. And that will maybe give the illusion of where it is deeper in the water towards the bottom here. And then as you get closer to the surface where the light is coming through the water, the blue gets a little bit lighter as well. All right, here's the first one, right over the sand, right over my sea anemone, my sea sponge. And there's my first one. For my second one, I think I want to dip into that bluish purple and see if there's going to be some color changes that I can do here. This one, I'm going to go across. I'm just going to change the direction of my brush stroke. Ooh, I did the purple on the top here. Let me get some more blue into it. That really came out very purple, going right over my animal. And the oil pastel is going to resist. It is not going to let the watercolor penetrate that color. It's going to resist it so it stays beaded on top. There we go, going right over to my border. Let me add a little more. I want to go to that purple again. Oh, I like the purplish blue. What I don't want for this one, this artwork, is to have it stay on top of my animal. So I'm going to go ahead and blot. Blot is when you go up and down, up and down. So I'm going to go up and down on top of my picture and take it off of the top of my animals here, because it seems like it's really covering my orange octopus here. So here we go. I'm gonna just take a tissue and I'm just gonna blot it. There we go, it takes it right off of the top. That watercolor is just sitting on top of that oily oil pastel. So I'm just taking it right off. Just taking it right off just by blotting. I'm not rubbing, I'm just going up and down and taking that extra watercolor off of that oil pastel. There we go. Here's the one I did with crayon. All right, I'm gonna go with a blue-green for this one. So let me add a little bit of green to my blue up here in my palette area. There we go, just a little more green in my blue. And again, I think I'll go side to side. Haha, did you see those bubbles pop up right away? I love that. I hope it kind of surprised you. It surprised me. I forgot that I put them there. This was done with the crayons. Again, the watercolor sits on top of that waxy crayon because wax and water don't mix. There we go, side to side. Maybe I'll dip in a little bit darker blue to kind of show that it's deeper water down below. There we go. And now I want to blot it off just a little bit off the top here. There we go. Really showing my bright, warm colors. Beautiful. And last but not least is my sea star. It was already done on purple paper, so I'm just going to dip into the blue. I want to see what that purple paper will do with the blue. This one I'm going to go in a diagonal. I like to choose a direction when I'm painting with watercolors. That way, if they overlap and you see the direction that I'm painting, it's comforting that the direction remains the same. Kind of keeps my eye moving with the direction of my strokes here. Using warm and cool colors created very nice contrast. And again, I'm just gonna blot a little bit of it. Or maybe you like the way that the water looks beaded on top. Really does give an underwater effect, but I want to show a little more of my details of my sea star here. There we go. So I just blot a little bit off the top. Now I have 3 artworks, 2 of them on different colors of paper. This was done with crayons. These were created with oil pastels, but all the same technique. Watercolor, resist. Today, our subject matter were invertebrates, and that's an animal without a backbone, but we were a little more specific. We wanted to do underwater invertebrates or seawater, saltwater invertebrates. So that was our subject matter today. And for our technique, perhaps you colored with light pressure to make it see-through or transparent, like the sandy areas. But for your animals, maybe you used heavy pressure to make your color opaque or solid, which also may have changed the texture to a smooth texture. Thank you for doing this artwork with me. I cannot wait to see what you create.